Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. First of all, thank you so much for the organizers who are helping and organizing this event. And thank you for Scylla for inviting me over. So I appreciate your time. And thank you for the participants and being this in the space too. Once again, my name is Marisol Rubio, pronoun she, her, ella. I'm an immigration social worker at Legal Services for Children. It's a nonprofit organization in the Bay Area, specifically in San Francisco, and we help unaccompanied minors. And I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen now. Feel free to let me know if it doesn't come up. Give me 1 second. Okay. Are you all able to see that? Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. So this presentation is basically talking about the services and resources, specifically in the Bay Area, but I think this is a great opportunity for other communities to know on how to support unaccompanied minors. Especially in our organization, we serve unaccompanied minors from the arrival to the US and then ongoing until their services. I will be sharing a little bit about how our services work in with having a social worker and an attorney in as a collaborative team. So we'll go more in details a little about that, but basically this presentation is to support how to continue supporting unaccompanied minors. And if you haven't heard about unaccompanied minors, I think this is a great opportunity to also learn who are unaccompanied minors and what kind of support we can provide them. And also, just a little logistics. If any questions come up, feel free to save it at the end. And my colleagues here and the team organizer will help me out answer those questions at the end. So please feel free to type those questions and we'll get to those questions at the end. But thank you. Alrighty, so let me go to the next slide. So I'll talk a little bit. Here's the agenda for today. I'm gonna talk about a little bit of history, what is unaccompanied minors and how does it entail, what is the age, and a little talk about target population, some data, some hardships that a lot of this youth face, talk about some rights that many of this youth are able to access, and then a little bit of more of social workers in legal aspect in collaborating with attorneys, and provide some case studies of how different schools, for instance, in the Bay Area have welcomed a space for unaccompanied minors, and we'll share that information. And then at the end, I'll just share some resources as well as some recommendations like policy or future changes that we can continue supporting many youth in this field. Okay. So if this is your first time hearing of what is an unaccompanied minor, basically there has been a history where a lot of youth have been coming into the US, and you may know or may not know, but a lot of youth have been coming because of violence that is happening in their home country, and that can be from gang affiliation, recruitment, violence within the family setting, and this can be immediate family members such as caregivers, grandparents, or maybe non-relative where they live with friends. They can be abused in their home country, such as physical and mentally abused, or it could be a lot of folks that we serve, that youth have been working in their home country at such a young age, and they faced a lot of abuse in that workplace, which can cause them physical or mental trauma. Another poverty can be an issue where a lot of youth have been coming to the US because they are malnutrition, they don't have food access in their home country, they don't have a lot of money to pay to survive. So poverty has been a high issue for them to come to the US. Another one is climate change. For instance, a natural disaster that has happened in their home country, from earthquakes to hurricanes to a plague, or just also like the pandemic too, where a lot of folks have migrated their home country in search for better healthcare or better needs. If a youth has a disability, their home country may not have access to those services, so they're just migrating to the US for those access resources. And lastly, family reunification is another reason why a lot of our youth have come to the US, because they have a family member a mom or a dad or a caregiver that they travel first, and then now they want to reunite with that family member in the US. So that can be another reason why they wanting to leave their home country and coming to the United States. And here I just wanted to add a quote from Jose, who's 17, who traveled to the US. And the reasoning of coming is because of abuse that their stepfather, and they would hit them physically. And they wanted to protect their mother, and he would get angry at them. So this is a reason why a lot of youth have migrated. And this is another example of why a lot of you have made that decision. And just continuing the history, in this next slides, I'll provide some data, but this is other two quotes from youth of why they decided to come to the US. Grandparents recruitment, grandparents who are taking care of the young, have care for them in their home country, but they also can really take care of them because they can't possibly work. So they encourage, or they tell the youth to migrate to the US and avoid any recruitment from gang. So these are some other quotes that I wanted to highlight of why youth are coming into the US and how they continue to search for a better opportunity and migrate to the US. So just a little definition of unaccompanied minor is youth who are under the age of 18, they lack of lawful immigration status in the US, and who either are without a parent or legal guardian in the US, or without a parent legal guardian in the US, who are available to provide a care for custody. And many of these youth who come are usually called UCs, um, or unaccompanied children or unaccompanied minor. And they come from all over the place in different parts of the world. There's a high population of Central American folks who come, but there's also like South America and other countries such as Ukraine, for instance. I know our organization serve whichever youth needs our services. So it's definitely varies of countries, but we do get a majority of Latin American countries folks, especially Spanish speaking communities. But we also have seen like other parts of the world that come to our organization. So this is a little target population. And here is some data on children and youth, and this is reflecting from 2015 to 2021, but the numbers continue increasing each year, and that varies from the different things that I mentioned earlier, from like poverty to climate change to family reunification to political views that are happening in our home country. So as you can see, different countries have their high numbers. Some change, but also like the numbers continue to go up. And this already tells us that a lot of youth for instance, in Central America, they come to the US because of whatever's happening in their home country. And their immediate family members, they're seeking other resources, or they're fleeing their home country to be able to, have a safe, secure place to be, which is the United States. So this is just some data that I wanted to provide to reflect that this has been an ongoing challenge for a lot of youth, and fleeing has been their only solution to leave their country and find other opportunities along the way and coming here. So the numbers definitely tell us a lot. So that's why I wanted to show you all that a lot of youth continue coming in, and I think also political views in the US has been another thing where influence the youth to possibly seek other countries, but I know there continue being a high number coming to the US. So here just wanted to go a little bit more about some hardships that our organization and other organizations that we collaborate, we have seen and continue talking about the hardships that many of this youth. And one unique part as a social worker as myself is helping supporting the many youth who come through our doors in the aspect of the social work needs. And I think that's why our organization focuses on the social worker to help the needs that many of these hardships, a lot of youth who come in, and then the attorneys who support the legal needs, which is like finding a path to citizenship. So for instance, hardships is trauma. A lot of our youth who come in through our door come in with a trauma of fleeing, migrating to the US, a lot of hardships they had to navigate from even physical and mental hardships just coming to the US and their days of traveling, and also experiencing trauma within their home country. And that could be from abuse from family members, hard working conditions, and let us remind ourselves that many of these youth are kids, and experiencing this trauma early on can take long-term effects. And many of these youth, their trauma can be from like seeing like abuse from family or actually experiencing themselves. So one thing that when we do our evaluation, when a new youth comes in and we do a psychosocial evaluation, which is where the social workers go more in depth on how to support this youth, we talk about their needs, and trauma has been something that we have been focusing and also supporting them on that. Another hardship that a lot of youth is cultural adaptation and language problems. And that could be from just lack of education now coming to the US. They don't know the different systems we have to navigate. They don't know that they have to go to school or they have to learn English to navigate this new environment. And they're also like may not be able to be a native Spanish speaker. They might speak their indigenous language, such as Mom and other indigenous languages. So it's definitely a hardship when they come to the US, where they're balancing this new environment wherever they're located, the language, the different systems they have to navigate, from like school to health to actually living with someone they hardly even know. So it's definitely a cultural adaptation, and our organization tries to be like inform them of the different systems they may have to navigate, and how as myself as a social worker can help them navigate in those systems and support them through those routes. And another hardship is astounding debt. It's very unfortunate that a lot of youth and families who come to the US may have already have a debt because of those fees that they might have paid, or their caregivers might have paid. And they come to the US in seeking for work. And that's something we find out from a lot of youth, that they have this debt that they have to pay, or they want to, they have a commitment of helping their parents in their home country, so they want to have a work in order to help them navigate. And so there's that also like a lot of mindset that a lot of our youth have this step in mind. So that's something we also keep in mind, that a lot of when they come in, that can be a hardship for them. Um, also fraud is another thing where we notice that a lot of our youth can experience fraud in the US. For instance, they're vulnerable to exploitation. And that's something that this different systems they come in, and they may face exploitation from like even family members, or they may be influenced in a different route where the community where they want to do something that makes them easy money. And so that's something definitely we let the youth know, and we help them educate their rights, as well as how we can continue to support them, and how we can provide resources for them. So fraud is definitely something that we also keep an eye out, and that could also lead to immigration and notarios, and they might have this additional debt that they have to pay to private attorneys, so that they're probably not attorneys. So we definitely let them know about the rights, and inform them like what fraud looks like and how to prevent those. And our organization is free of services, so we let them know like they don't have to pay us anything. Our services are free. So I think definitely fraud has been one of the conversations that as an organization we help and inform the community of how to prevent those issues coming. Another one is at risk for trauma and risk behavior. And many of these youth come into the US where they hardly know the language, the community. They just may know one family member that they're staying with, and they're at high risk of possibly being involved with police, or other things that might cause them long-term effects. And or maybe it might trigger them to things that in back home it wasn't nothing, but here in the US it might be something bigger. So definitely a lot of the youth that we have witnessed is they might be really a high risk. So we always try to inform them, connect with them to those resources, such as if it's the school or mental health, or just other services that we collaborate to have those connections and continue that dialogue with the youth. And that has been something that we continue keeping an eye also in the case in supporting the youth. Um, and also depending on where the youth is staying, housing is definitely a situation where we have witnessed in the Bay Area, as for instance, where it's a high cost of living, high cost of rent. And um, it's wonderful that there's resources of like shelters and that support youth, but also there's a high demand where there's more youth than beds. So we have taken creatively to collaborate with other orgs, as well as just talk about what can we do to supporting this youth. And especially in the scenario where a youth can't stay with a family member, and possibly this may lead to CPS in be involved because they're a minor. But when youth passes the age of 18 and they're adults, so that's where sometimes we have to think out of the box and how to support the youth in housing. But depending where they're living, I think a lot of the families who take in this youth in, they also have another plate to feed, so they have to possibly get more hours. So it's definitely a collaborative approach that we talk with the family members, talk with the youth, supporting them on the housing need, but also other services, because this new family member who's taking care of the youth might not know the youth as much, or they may know from a little bit of childhood. But I think our end is to collaborate with both parties, such as the youth and the family member, to make sure the communication is all along, as well as the services that we provide and other support services that we can give, because we don't want any lost communication within the household. And housing need can be an issue where the family member may feel more burden, and then they may reach out and tell us that unfortunately they can't take care of the youth. So then that's when we have to we approach from the beginning to have an idea where the youth is at and how many family members live, to prevent any housing hardships in the future, but also evaluate and collaborate with the family so we're all in the same plate. And lastly, institutional challenges is another thing that many nonprofits may face, where funding sources is we, like as a nonprofit at LSE, we rely on heavily on funding, and our services can be restricted because of a specific funding. And so this is a huge thing that we're thinking creatively in talking with our team development, how to continue applying for grants and whatnot. But also institutional challenges can be where the funding can be specifically to a specific population or a specific area. So that really limits our work. And also another institutional challenge can be practitioners who don't know what unaccompanied minors is, who may not be familiar, and this might be the first time they're interacting one, and how to adequately provide those training to serve this population, to understand that many of these youth who come in may feel very timid at first, may not want to talk, and that might be just because of the language barrier, and how to collaborate with those practitioners and being able to let them know that they may have recently arrived and it might be hard to open up, but these are the fun facts about them. Share them a little bit about how this youth may benefit from this resource, to continue the training to serve this population specifically. Another institution challenge can be mobility, where many of our youth live in various parts of the Bay Area, and mobility can be one issue where public transportation may work, but then if they're commuting through bar or they're commuting through car, then mobility can be a little harder for them. So we're definitely thinking creatively when reaching out to youth. For instance, at LSC, we, as a social worker myself, I give that opportunity to the youth, like, do you want me to meet you at your home for the first time? Do you want to meet a park? So I myself, I'm very flexible on that sense as a social worker, because I do understand their mobility might be different, and sometimes in the school might be a good setting to meet. But I know different organizations might be differently in mobility. So being mindful that a lot of this youth mobility might be hard for them, especially if they're new to the city. They may not know how to get from one place to the next place. So just taking those little extra steps on helping them understand what bus to take, or if your organization has capacity to Uber them, I think that'll give them just a little safe for them, for the youth to be making it to those appointments in the future. And also another institutional challenge can be just fear and distrust of social services and legal services. There's definitely like confianza that a lot of our youth feel that they have they may have a long-term experience of not trusting an adult or not trusting the system, and they may have a little distrust in meeting, but definitely reminding them of our services. And like in our organization, we tell them how our services work and how it's free and it's open to, like, supporting them to a path to citizenship. And having that first introduction is also great because they'll get to know you, and hopefully if that's in person. But a lot of our communities do face fear and distress, so that can be a little bit challenging for different organizations who want to support the youth, but the youth might have a little hesitation because they don't want to be paying extra fees, or if it's fraud or whatnot. So there might become some hardships in that end. So just wanted to give that overview of a lot of youth who face hardships coming to the US. And there's definitely a lot that we can continue supporting. And these are just some examples that I wanted to name. Okay. Now we're just going to go a little more in depth about just rights of youth, and this might be just some reminders, but just wanted to bring this up that any youth in the education system can access to education, and this is the Plyler versus Doe, where it allows any youth to go to school. And many of the youth that come through our door unfortunately don't know about this. So it's we really help them collaborate with the caregiver and let them know that they have an access to education, and enroll in them and help them enroll in that process, because that can be another path of system that they have to navigate, because they may ask them of like their home country's grades or enrollment, and then the school system may have to see what level they are, or if they have to take an exam. So definitely collaborating with the caregiver and the school system they are, so they're able to access those resources. And then just some benefits. Many of our youth do receive, are qualifying for Medi-Cal, and that is another system that many of our youth have to overcome, and be able to access these resources. And this is another platform where we collaborate with the caregiver, with the adult, to make sure they enroll them and how to enroll them. And I know that it might be a long process of paperwork, but supporting them from face to face, so they can access those health services and be able to see a doctor for the first time, or being to get a physical for the first time. Especially if they're coming to the US, they may need those vaccinations updated, especially for school. So that might be something we might prioritize and collaborate with the youth. And that's a system that the youth has to face in navigating. So I know in our organization, and this might be different from other orgs, but as a social worker myself, I'm able to have that direct communication with the caregiver and call Medi-Cal to continue checking their status, to continue seeing there's updates, like why haven't they received their card and whatnot. So it's a lot of has to do with persistence and calling Medi-Cal to make sure the process keeps going. And I think that's another benefit from our organization, is we do have social workers that can continue serving this youth, and making sure they are able to receive those services. So that's access for benefits. And immigration, well, as we may familiarize, they have a right for an immigration attorney to appear with immigration court hearings. And one wonderful thing of our organization is we have the attorney, that we are a team collaborative report, and so our attorney will able to support them in whatever needs in the legal aspect, if they're applying for a benefit, explain them what the process looks like, and letting them know that this might be a long process, but also rewarding at the end if they decide to continue staying in the US, and letting them know that this might be a lot to take in, but definitely it's a path to citizenship if they want to move forward with that. And so definitely that's their path for the youth to receive if they would like. And lastly, family. A lot of the youth who come to the US, they can choose wherever they want to live, but at the same time, that family member may know them a bit or may not know them a lot. So that's definitely something to consider. I know a lot of our youth who have come to our organization and continue serving them. They stay with aunts, uncles, grandparents, one parent. So they have that access to stay with them, and be able to live with them and continue to receive that support from that caregiver. So those are the rights for youth. And now I'm just gonna talk a little bit about, I know I talked more in depth about our services, but some unique parts of our legal services is the social worker and an attorney approach, where we are a team-based collaborative advocacy. And one thing that we always love doing is having that first introduction where the youth is present, and then also the caregiver, and then the social worker, and then the attorney. And we all introduce each other, our roles, our different confidentiality. And one unique part about my role specific, I am a mandated reporter versus the attorney is the different confidentiality. So we do explain that to the youth in the first introduction, in that first meeting, so they know what they can share with me, or my limitations of my confidentiality too. But overall, I believe we've been in LSC has been for more than 20 years and are an ongoing work. So this approach has been a very resourceful, and I think from what data has been saying is like social workers and attorneys can make an impact to a youth because they have those social work needs and then legal needs at the same time. And in my end, for my role specifically, I make sure the youth is having, we talk about their needs. I do a psychosocial evaluation where that's our first meeting between myself and the youth, talk to them individually, tell them of how their life has been so far, how their home country has been, just get more facts on how they're doing and what support systems I could do, especially in the school system, in the health and other needs they may need. I do provide some treatment plan and crisis interventions if that leads to that, but also about just where they're staying, how they're doing, do they have a bed, do they have food, and just make sure their needs are met. And other advocacy is like if they need me to go to the school with them, if they need extra support on mental health, how we can provide those mental health services. So definitely in my role, I have seen that a lot of our youth benefit from my services, and I also benefit from getting to learn from them and how their life has been a trajectory now that they're coming to the US, and how they have goals and they want to pursue better opportunities now that they're here. So it's definitely a collaborative approach that I want to be inclusive to the youth. And that same goes along with the attorney, where they help them from the beginning stages and screen them what benefits they can qualify, and continuing ongoing support for through the work permit or whatever path they're applying. And then myself and the attorney, we connect with each other on if something arises or what other creative ways can we support the family. So it's definitely been a very positive team advocacy in our organization. And I know LSC has probably over 9 social workers, so it's definitely one of the biggest ones, that biggest organization that has social workers. And attorneys helping youth, and I'm happy to talk about that collaboration offline if anyone is interested. But yeah, I wanted to share that to the participants of the different roles that we have at our organization. Okay, so now just a little more talking about the systems I mentioned, but in the Bay Area, for instance, school district has been a positive outcome for a lot of our communities. Specifically, I know our organization has gone to different school districts in the Bay Area to have conversations about the influx of many unaccompanied minors coming in, and how to support them, how to have that strong collaboration between the school and the legal services and the social services to communicate with each other, if they want us to come more often to the schools to have presentations and whatnot. I think that's been a positive outcome from the school districts that we have seen. And we also remind them, and they may know, right, about the existing programs that are designated to support immigrant children, such as the one you see on the slide. So that's definitely something that we keep in mind, as well as collaborate with the district. And in the next slides, I'll provide some data or some example case studies of how school district have been going beyond in helping many of our youth. But the school system is very important, where a lot of the youth also feel that they spend most of their time there from like 9 to 8:30 to 3 p.m., right? So it's most of the time they spend there. And in some occasions, a lot of youth feel like that's their safe haven, that's their safe space, where they meet new friends, they meet new communities, and they get to practice their English or bilingual skills. So school systems are very important for our youth that we serve, because this is where they grow their skills, they grow their minds, and they ask for help if they need to. And so it's definitely important on our end that we have that collaboration with the school, and how to continue having that dialogue in supporting unaccompanied minors. So definitely the school system is very important on our end. And here is just to give two examples of how case studies at two different school systems where they've been supporting beyond many of our youth, and continue having collaborative approaches with them. For instance, the Oakland International High School have been going beyond on, providing workshops on reunification, having those conversations with caregivers. They welcome with a holistic intake on the first day. They have all those resources such as counseling, enrollment, um, and a work-life balance, because a lot of our youth who come, they have little side work opportunities that come as,
Turn off the
and
audio.
they continue having, a work-life balance and then school. So a lot of the youth like going to those schools, because they're able to do other stuff besides school. um, and they provide different community workshops that they're just welcoming a lot of our youth that we serve. So definitely Oakland International has been one of the case studies that I wanted to provide, because they do provide a lot, and they welcome a lot of unaccompanied minors. The next one is Rothschild Newcomer Academy, for instance, where they're also very inclusive to unaccompanied minors, where they're very flexible in their school schedule. They, make sure you're up to date with credits, if know how to work with you and with the youth, and make sure you're enrolled, or how to collaborate. And they just provide so many resources that it's beyond what they have capacity, but I know they enjoy doing it. And I cannot say much, but they're wonderful school, and both of them, right? These are just two examples of how these schools have been receiving high amount of unaccompanied minors, and how to creatively within their school think about supporting them. Another example that I am providing the slides is SF International in San Francisco International High School in San Francisco, where I know our services have been very proactive with them in doing presentations and just being even meeting with youth in that school. And so that's definitely another case study where they've been going beyond and helping unaccompanied minors, welcoming them. And a lot of our youth who have gone there, they enjoy it, and they're always feeling safe in that community because they see other people like them, and they could speak the language, and even with the teachers, right? So definitely wanted to highlight those case studies and how many schools have been inclusive and welcoming and creatively thinking out of the box on how to support many of this influx of unaccompanied minors coming in and needing services, and how to making sure they welcome them. So definitely wanted to highlight that. I also wanted to highlight that there's a lot of organizations who do amazing work, and I cannot express how much they also provide support for unaccompanied minors. And these are some examples that I wanted to highlight in the Bay Area specifically, where especially like Soccer Without Borders, there's one in the East Bay, where basically they welcome any youth who wants to play soccer. And a lot of our youth who have come to the US love soccer. They like watching it, they like playing it. So that's their own way of like healthy activity, but also like just not thinking about life and playing, and just have fun, be a kid again. So it's definitely something that organization has welcomed doors for a lot of youth to be able to just enjoy and have soccer games and be part of a community where they get to meet other friends and colleagues. So it's definitely a one thing that in the Bay Area has provided to a lot of our youth, and we continue having those collaborations with them in order to how to bring those soccer games to our youth that we're serving. And then other organizations, as you can see, it's like a hospital base, it's legal services, but it's also like mental health services, and how to continue supporting those resources to many youth who continue to battle and continue having challenges, and how to provide those services to them. So definitely, I think this is a partnership that our organization connects with other organizations on how to collaborate, how to be able to continue supporting many of these youth. So here, wanted to provide just some recommendations of like what can we do after learning all this information and being able to be an advocate for unaccompanied minors. One thing is definitely fostering collaboration and coordination among providers through regional and county-wide meetings and forums. And by you all being here, this is the first step. So definitely being proactive in learning more about the services and how to continue supporting this youth. And you may be in a new field right now where you're learning about them, and I hope you got some glimpse of how to continue supporting them. But attending meetings, forums, and collaborating with other organizations can be beneficial. And one example is our organization and AG in Oakland have held convenings and in the legal and non-legal needs, such as social services too, on how to foster collaboration and how to support each other and how to continue that network in being able to support unaccompanied minors. Another recommendation is acknowledge mental health and social services needs. As vital as many unaccompanied minors, I'm providing funding for crucial events such as psychosocial evaluations and capacity to build among providers. Um, and that leads to social workers needing more in the space to be able to provide services to youth and be a hand to them to support them in every way that they need in navigating all the systems. And hopefully like funding comes along to be able to provide as much as we can and capacity. And I know different organizations, including ourselves, LSC, we provide psychosocials because we have a social worker in the team, where we're able to see what needs they are. So definitely mental health and social workers are high demand, especially a lot of the youth who don't know how to ask for help in healthcare, or their caregiver may not know how to start the process. So definitely a social worker can support them in that end and just make sure they're accessing that resource. Another recommendation is build community and foster social integration for children through planning social events and supporting groups in places where a lot of unaccompanied minors are already congregating. This is an example where like many youth may have some beliefs and values in their own faith, and they want to continue practices. So a lot of churches in the Bay Area have provided natural organic grounding events where they invite recently arrivals to, have a space if they want to connect their faith and whatnot. So this is another example. But I know in our organization at LSC, one thing that we've been doing is having educational literacy workshops, such as like tax workshops, such as how to access um, your internet, and how to create an email, because many of our youth may not know how to do that. And so we're just creating steps for them to be able to slowly learn and have a hands-on for them to access those services. And we creatively have gone also, like the FIFA just happened. So we created like viewing parties where we all welcome a youth, have a meal, watch the games, and that just creates a community where we bring our youth to those activities where they're seeing something new, they're learning something new about their community where they're living, and have a meal that they could have for the day, and have that experience to remember. So fostering social integration, social events, can be benefiting from a lot of youth, and this can be another opportunity that you're getting to know them and building that relationship as well. So here are just some final resources that I wanted to share. And as you may know, the slides will be shared, so feel free to take a look at them whenever you have time. They're just more additional supports that you all can find, and that you all can learn more about it as well. And that's it on my end. I know I want to leave some minutes for questions, but thank you so much for everyone for listening, being part of this presentation. And I appreciate you all of your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Marisol. We do have, I believe, one question. It says, can you speak to the possible resources with an OTIP letter?
Ooh, okay, that's a good one. Thank you. So I actually received one of my youth who was eligible for OTIP. And in that scenario, basically a lot of callings and advocacy for the youth, because the assigned caseworker in the OTIP they were working remotely, so we had to think creative ways to support the youth. But basically that letter allows the youth to receive services. And one thing that myself and the youth, and then another collaborative organization that we had to really help each other to understand this letter too, because this was our first time receiving this benefit that we didn't really know the youth was even eligible. So we were all learning the steps, but definitely having that letter opens doors to a lot of youth who can access to resources. And I believe in the letter it will say what they're eligible to and if they have a time limit to apply. So I would really advocate for to apply as soon as possible for whatever benefits the youth may need. But by receiving that, it's really beneficial. I know the youth that we serve open doored a lot of opportunities for them. So thank you for asking that question.
Yes, wonderful. I'm also going to drop a link that is very helpful regarding OTIP, and it explains the timeline and the benefits and all that. So I'm going to share it in the general chat so everyone can have access to it. I don't think we have other questions. If anyone wants to ask something, we still have some time. So please, you could drop the question in the chat or unmute yourself. We'll give it a couple of minutes. But thank you, Marisol. You did get a lot of comments on the general chat, very inspiring. A lot of people were reminiscing of their own stories. And I don't know if you probably obviously did not have time. So I encourage you to look at them, the wonderful messages, very appreciative of social workers. So yes. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments, y'all. And yeah, I just hope like there's more policies for supporting unaccompanied minors. And then I think one way is to talk to your local districts or local congressmen or representatives and let them know how a lot of our youth need access to this and sharing your story as in your role. And I think that's something that I myself in this role have been doing, talking to a lot of folks in power to let them know how our youth are needing help, and sometimes receiving those resources can change their lives in a positive setting. So I would really advocate for just mentioning those comments to the people in power and let them know how our youth are in need of these services, and how we have seen just a glimpse and they have an ongoing life now and seeking for better opportunities. So yeah, any work that I can be helpful for, please. I'm happy to answer, or feel free to connect with me later on offline.
Thank you so much, Marisol. Okay, you're getting a lot of thinking. I think we don't have any more questions, but if something comes up later on, you could put it in the Q&A. We could always pass Marisol the question, or we could answer ourselves. I guess we'll give you guys extra minutes for break, and we'll play some music. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thanks.